buying Bose headsets. They're expensive.
Yeah, and you mean the Bose were what you just had and they didn't sound good?
Didn't sound good. That's not like Bose. Usually they're very high quality, but
no, you need to take those back.
take them back. Well, I've had them for 2 years. I've been jogging with them, so they're a little a little used.
Drop them in the creek and then put them back on. The mic doesn't work.
Yeah. You gotta. Yeah, I'm not gonna make any rude jokes here. So how many people we got going on here?
Well, he was speaking, but there's Jonathan.
Jonathan, Yair, Phoebe.
Yeah, we saw
There
Jonathan on the screen there.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm here.
Hey, I'm Jonathan. Jogging with them, so they're a little used. Is that the YouTube feedback? Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, we should be good.
We are ready.
YouTube is off.
Yeah,
no, there we go.
Jokes here. So we're
By the way, just
Edward's
so you
joining.
know, John Galbraith has been a buddy of mine for over 20 years. He lives in Victoria, and when he's not in a lab, he gets to go to his place. Is it in Parker's? Is that where you are right now, or are you in Victoria?
You're muted, John.
Classic. Apologies. Yes, no, I'm in Victoria right now. But yes, I like visiting Parksville too.
Yeah, but I love the trees. I love the plant life.
Yeah, I have a rubber plant here in the condos.
Nice.
Edward, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Dean. It's good to see everyone.
Yeah. Nice to be with you, Edward. Again.
Hi, Edward.
Okay. Are we ready to fire up?
We're ready. We're on.
I think we're ready. Good. So with that, I can welcome all of you officially to, this is what, October 3rd. Excuse me, how time flies. Or October 3rd, E-Noam discussion. And it's not just any October 3rd discussion. We are actually restarting from the beginning. And that's why we had fun coming up the name back to the beginning. Bereshit together. And we've, from E-Noam, we've spent a lot of time on Genesis. So I think, among those who have walked with us in this journey over the last couple, we've been doing this for 11 years. But many of you have joined with us over the last couple of years, where we spent a lot of time on Genesis with Itai Ashkenazi, and then Rav Dov from Shiloh. And today we're back into Genesis. And just before we kind of start shifting into the study, just by way of introduction, for those of you who are either on the call or joining us online, you are stepping into the E-Noam Bible Torah study together. And we are a group of Christians and Jews getting together because we believe collectively, actually, that the Hebrew Scriptures are the Word of God, the Creator. And we celebrate that together, even though we are Jews and we are Christians and we have different theological beliefs, some of which are somewhat in tension with each other. And we like dealing with elephants in the room as well in our group. We're not afraid of difficult questions and discussions, because we've learned that love is a very powerful thing. And we like to deploy it aggressively in the pursuit of being able to relate to one another and to connect with one another and to enjoy the Bible together, even in the midst of our theological differences. So with that, we also do span many different countries and continents. I'm in Canada. Many of you are in the Middle East, in Africa, in the United States, and it's great to get together around God's Word together. So with that introduction out of the way, I just want to quickly just give you the lay of the land of our discussion today. In about 5 minutes, we are going to do breakout groups, and we're going to study the sources. So we're going to go back to Genesis together in our breakout groups, and that's going to be about half an hour. So we've got a generous portion of time to, in small groups, talk amongst ourselves about the reading in Genesis for today. And then we're going to come back together and then we're going to share the thoughts that came out of our discussions together. We're going to share some concluding thoughts. And so our target is to hit the concluding thoughts around quarter after 3 Eastern time. That'll be quarter after 10 Israel time. And then we'll just briefly touch on what we're doing next week, because we have a really exciting meeting that's going to span a lot of the day. For those of you who have been involved with the Sukkot Summit, next Sunday, we're going to be doing the Sukkot Summit wrap-up. We're going to be kind of reviewing or giving people the opportunity to review a lot of the content that was created that was really educational, inspiring, and fun. So with that, Yair, did you want to say any words of introduction before we send our fellow adventurers into the Havruta study breakout groups?
No?
Oh, I am. I'm delighted to hear. I mean, we have to go into the breakout rooms with some questions in mind, so that we can share the results afterwards. I did send some slides prior, and in those slides, I was focusing primarily on the first chapter of Genesis and how it seemed like almost like basically every day something went wrong. Kind of. Even the fact that on the second day we don't have God saying, he thought this was good, and then on the third day it appears twice. It almost seems like as if God didn't meet the deadline. I mean, the day ended when he was still in the middle, and he had to finish it the following day. So there really are so many fascinating aspects of the story of creation that beckon us to ask why. What really can we learn from this? What is the purpose of creation? So for me, what is the purpose of creation? It's like a major question that I would like to discuss. But I would love to hear what other questions came up for those who reviewed the parsha this last weekend, so that we can all know what kind of questions we should be discussing in the breakouts. Would anybody like to add additional questions? Why do things seem to go? My question again is, why do so many things seem to have gone wrong? Even the fact that at the end of the parsha, God says, I've had enough of this, and we got to press the reset button, or a whole lot of other things that really seem to go wrong. I find that very.
I don't see that at all. I don't see that anything went wrong, because what do we even have to gauge what's right or wrong? But I did take note. I actually made my first podcast this week on Tohu Vavohu. I did
Chaos.
The fact that God, what was he really working with? Because even though you have chaos, right, and you're without any kind of a form in the beginning, the question is, the Vavohu is more like a ruin. And what's interesting with that, he's raising up, he's building something or recreating something that has been ruined, something that's desolate. So, and the other interesting thing is you've got a void here. He's working with a void, and in the process of creation, and he completes that by filling the void with the Shabbat. So what was his intention from the beginning? Why does he end it with Shabbat? And then even when you go into Isaiah, he talks about the fact that Shabbat is connected. He says, if you keep the Shabbat the way I intended it to, he says, you're going to be like Jacob, and you're going to be a person that is going to raise up the ruins. So is there a connection between that text and the fact that he was raising up, he was recreating something from ruins, and here he finishes everything with the filling of his spirit in the Shabbat. So that was my big thing this week on the connection between Shabbat and Tohu Vevavohu. So the question is, how does God, and what aspects of God are being manifest to create the heavens and the earth and everything that exists? What aspects of God are manifesting themselves? So that, so I don't know. I don't know how, I agree with you. There is no Tov and there's no Tov on the sixth day either. When he creates man, he didn't say it's good either. But I don't know if I would.
In the end of the sixth, he actually says that he looks at everything. He says Tov Ma'od. Very good.
Right, when he finishes everything, right? But so that's interesting, though, that you saw that is something that went wrong, and I have to go look at it from that perspective. I thought that's
Well,
very
on the fourth day, he makes two big lights, and then all of a sudden, one of them is small. There's an example in every single day.
But maybe he intended it that way.
Well, okay, that's for the discussion.
That's for the discussion. That's it. So I wanted to just share with everybody, if you look in the chat in Zoom, you'll see that I shared the PDF document that has the text for today. And then I also shared a link to the Sephariah website that has the parashat for today, just in case you want to pull up some common text to just flip through certain things. So
I don't have it.
I don't see it in the chat right now.
Yeah, Gabriel, it's not here.
Oh, Dean, did I send it only to Dean? That's bizarre. Okay, I will share. Thank you for pointing that out. That's very awkward. I will reshare that right now. You will be seeing that. I certainly don't want to show favoritism to Dean. And we will get this.
Why not?
Yeah, you traveled with him for a month.
I don't know. Maybe that's more food for discussion later. But let's. So I shared the PDF. Everyone should see it now, as well as the link to Sephariah, just again providing more fuel for the discussion.
Can I throw another question in just
Please.
to flutter?
Yes.
I'm still working on a question that goes back to Rav Dov, which had to do with, and those of us who were there might remember the pregnant pause that took place when one of the Christians amongst us talked about the sacrifice of an animal that made it possible to clothe Adam and Eve before they were banished from the garden. In verse 21 of chapter 3, the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Well, this is creating a marriage problem in our home because I've tried to explain this to my wife, what Rav Dov says, and of course, she has got the traditional Christian perspective there, and I'm struggling to help move her, and maybe somebody here could help me because we're trying to figure out what did man and woman look like before they recognized they were naked? Because Rav Dov made it very, very clear that we don't see any blood there in verse 21, and that potentially the skin that I have on my body right now is because of God's mercy back then. So I'd like to reopen that question that we sort of jumped over earlier with Rav Dov last year.
Okay.
Terrific.
I'm just looking at that verse. It's
and if
also
there's
in
any
there.
time to get in the Haftarah, I would love to, because that's a hot Aliyah chapter. It's a hot Goyim chapter, 42 and 43. So if there's time later today, that would be good too.
Good.
I always wonder how God made light. And I know your ear said, how could he make darkness? But he made the light before he made the sun and the moon. So what kind of light did he make?
Insight.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a good
When
one.
when he
Lord.
divided and he spoke and there was light,
Yeah.
and the light was morning. Mm.
And he had night and day, but there was no sun and moon that were to define that.
That's right.
Four.
That's right.
So okay, can I throw one in? I know I'm the moderator, but I want to throw a question in. So I had this debate with someone who was, I'm not sure what the term would be. I guess like a very literalist understander of the 6-day creation. And I brought up the question of, how do you define a
see how
day
the audio
when
works. Okay.
the Earth isn't revolving around itself for 24 hours? How do you our concept today of a day is that, there's the sun, there's the earth rotates on its axis, consistently, and then we consider that a day. But when we're talking about the very early part of creation, like when the scriptures uses the word yom, a Hebrew word, is there some flexibility in the concept of yom? And he got very upset with me because he said, no. He said it was a 24-hour period, the first day of creation. And I said, I don't understand what you mean. I said, I don't know what 24 hours means in the context of the first day of creation. I just don't, logically, I just don't know what that means. So that's a question that I have every time, especially if I'm dealing with people who have a very traditional Christian debated kind of view of the 24-hour creation view. So I thought I'd bring that up.
I used to teach a class on that, and I used to use Steve Hawking's formula on the 6 days and how you can actually have an evolution and still through that with his formula have 6 days of creation. It's very interesting. So we'll talk about it.
All right.
All right.
So,
Anyone
any
else?
other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
David?
Yes, a week or so ago, I was sharing at a conference something similar to what Gabriel just said. The concept of day, I read someplace that in the old Hebrew, yom, the yom that's used in Genesis chapter 1, is probably the only reference to the word yom that's not bound by 24 hours. That it was more of an indefinite kind of time with no boundaries of hours. That's first point I made. Then the second point is that the fact that the concept of day does not begin till God creates the concept of time. Sorry, the concept of time does not begin till about when He creates the lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and that does not come until the fourth day in inverted commas. So in other words, time as we know it today did not exist on the first 3 days. It did not exist in the first 3 days. It only comes when the day is separated from the night, and that is in verse 14 or on the fourth day in inverted commas. So there's still something to explore there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. All right. Anyone else before we move on? All right, Kim, I think you can banish us to our small groups.
Okay, it's going to be automatic, so I'm not sure where you're all going to go. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Let it begin.
Everything's open. Goodbye. I should. I should eat my salad. Baby's here. Or do I want to know? Who is MA? Hi, Yonatan.
Am I supposed to be here?
You're not joined. Where would you? Yeah, you're supposed to be. Phoebe's supposed to be. And who's MA?
I don't know. Hello? Hello?
All right. So I think we're all going to be trickling back here to give ourselves a couple more seconds. And just so everybody knows, you're automatically muted when you come back in. So if you want to share, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that everyone had a good discussion. I'm looking at your faces, and you all look kind of a little more shining, so that's a good sign. Basically, so now I want to open the floor. We have about 15 minutes to just chat about kind of the things that we discussed. I think we had 3 breakout rooms, so maybe we can take 5 minutes per breakout room and just share some of the ideas from our breakout room. I don't know if Ruth knows this, but we sort of elected Ruth to share some of the ideas from our breakout room. So
is she
I don't
happy
know
about it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. She's smiling, so that's good. I think Rick's relieved he doesn't have to do it.
It's a great choice.
So if the other groups, if you guys can maybe just pick someone amongst yourselves to share, that'll be good. And
I would nominate David.
all right.
Actually, I wanted to nominate Yair. I think you're better. I think Yair should do it for us.
Well,
Thank
if I
you.
get a vote,
Thank
I
you.
want David. I want you to do it.
No. But you can't vote. You're not in our group.
I'm not in your group. Dang it. Good.
No,
Well,
yeah,
you guys can work it out amongst yourselves. Ruth, did you want to just start us off, and then we'll go on to the other 2 teams?
Okay, so we took a quick look at your questions, but we ended up talking about the fact, and this was really articulated by Margaret, that Genesis is the foundation of everything that God is going to do, that it's kind of like a genetic code of the whole Bible. And so we started thinking about what foundational principles are introduced in the book of Genesis that we carry with us through our life and with our spiritual life with God. And one of them was, and I'll just make a list, but I won't discuss them. One of them was that God created the world with intention. And that means that this isn't a random chaos place. This is a place where I'm created with intention and with love, and therefore I have a purpose in this world. The second idea was that God created order out of chaos. So for us, we look for how to create order out of chaos. Foundational principles are laid down about gender. God created male and female, about marriage, about Adam and Eve leaving their father and mother, even though they didn't have one, and becoming one flesh. And what does that oneness mean? And how does it define relationships for the rest of eternity? We talked about being made in the image of God, defining the fact that all of us are created equal, and that is the reason why we don't believe in white supremacy or racism, because we believe that everybody from every nationality and race is created by God in an equal way. There's no hierarchy of people, which some people have believed in the past, including evolutionists. It laid down the principle of tov, of good. Good is a moral concept. It suggests that we know something is better than something else. And this isn't something that comes out of evolution. This is something that comes out of there being a God behind who's telling us what's good. The idea that God created us with the potential for good and evil and with choice. And the story about God saying to Cain that Satan is crouching at the door. And if you have to make a choice, and if you choose a good thing, then you'll do well. And if you don't, you won't. And he chose to not do the good thing, and he kills his brother. And the door is kind of like us having the ability to allow access into our life and our world things that are evil or not. And so that's a few of the foundational principles that we saw in the first 2 chapters of Genesis and what it means for us.
That's so beautiful.
Thanks.
I'm always struck by, when Gabriel always starts these sessions with this thing about having theological differences. Then I listen to someone like Ruth and I say, yeah, I agree.
We'll get to the differences later.
Yeah, but look how much we have already in common. My goodness.
It's good. So David, did my vote pass? Did you get elected?
No, sorry, it didn't pass. Our internal poll appointed to Yair. So please go ahead, Yair. Thank you.
Okay, look, basically, we had a very interesting conversation that had some things in common with things that Ruth talked about, but we were much more focused on whether evolution and the Torah are necessarily in conflict with each other or not. Because there is a tendency to think that they are completely at odds with each other, and in fact, you have to choose whether you accept evolution or you don't accept evolution. If it faith or evolution, it's like one or the other. I shared that we had a rabbi in the Technion who was really an amazing scholar, who actually said a very cute thing about how little Torah and little science appears to be in conflict with each other. But the moment you really go more deeply into both, you find that they actually not only do not conflict each other, but they actually enhance each other. So we won't go in the 5 minutes that we have to summarize, into the details. But I think it's very, very interesting to read the story of the creation in a way that evolution actually serves as a vehicle for a natural vehicle for creating the amazing world, that God uses this vehicle in order to creation of the world, but he actually breathes into mankind a spirit of God, so that we should raise this world, which would otherwise be purely survival of the fittest, into a completely different kind of world, where instead of there being contention between all the different species, there is actually harmony and love between them. And that is really the role of mankind in this journey, that God essentially created a world where all of the energies and laws, everything is already there for us to take in order to raise creation from a purely random evolutionary process, where there is, with the zero-sum game of survival of the fittest, into a completely different kind of world, which is the world of God, where there is love and everybody and harmony between all of the different creatures in this world. And that's really the primary role of mankind in the story. So, agreeing completely with Ruth about all the principles by which we have to follow in the ways of God in order to achieve that peace and harmony in the world. Again, the notion of all of us being born of the same parents, all of us having that image of God in us. These are the same things that Ruth already mentioned, being the key principles that should bind us all together as a family in order to fulfill the purpose of creation by learning to emulate God, and not only for us to emulate God, but knowing that if we emulate God, even the creatures around us will behave differently. Even the lions, the lambs and the lions will be able to sit together, because we will not just change our otherwise evolutionary nature, but we will actually take the DNA that God created this world with and imbue the rest of creation with the same characteristics to a degree that a child can play with a snake and lambs and wolves can bask together. This is really the purpose of creation.
Thank you, Yair. All right. Who's our next Chavruta presenter?
In our group, we had Jonathan, and I believe it, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but it means God gives mighty strength with your whole name. Jonathan Andre, is that correct?
God gives. I don't know if the mighty strength is the.
No, Andre, your last name means stronghold or mighty strength, doesn't it?
My last name?
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay. Well,
Sorry.
let's pretend it does. Okay.
Let's pretend.
Okay, so we talked about a few issues. We began with talking about the whole light and what did God create and what did God not create, meaning what was there before he started, such as like the water, for example, that it doesn't say that God created it. And what does this God's spirit that is above the water, what does that mean? And then we continued to a little bit about the different kind of languages in the chapter, meaning like the plural and the singular, right? There is a few places where God is, the Bible is speaking in plural, even though God is the only one there. So what does that mean? And then most of the time we basically spoke about this whole idea of the tree and why did God create it and what does it mean, and about free will and those kind of things. Did I forget anything, Dean?
No, I think you did really good. I think just looking at my notes here. Maybe John, did we leave anything out? I think for me that my takeaway was before this Genesis chapter 1 began, I think we found enough evidence that there was stuff happening and created before it. There was pre-creation.
Yeah. Good point. John, did you want to add anything?
I have to point out that Edrei, I just looked it up, etymologically does mean mighty. So you're going to have to get used to this idea, Jonathan.
What?
Family name really does mean mighty.
There you go.
Sorry, it had to be a goy to tell you that.
Well, I tell you what I do know. I do know that it comes from a name of a place.
Stronghold.
What?
A stronghold.
Perhaps.
Stronghold. Yeah, like a fortress.
Jonathan, you have to be very careful. These guys are fully armed with, Wikipedia and.
Yeah, we have Rabbi Google very quickly. Very quickly. Did anybody else want to share any thoughts? Anything that?
I just add what Kim was saying earlier, that I think the creation story, it tells us about a creation sequence, and it is a story, but it really talks a lot about who God is. He's our creator. And I don't think he was dictating to Moses, E equals MC squared. That's really important. You get the physics of this creation right. I think he was establishing a moral code in Torah that was totally unique in ancient societies, totally unique, nothing like it, especially in that it was all encompassing to what Yehir was saying about, all men and women are sons and daughters, right, of Adam and Eve. So it's all encompassing. It's not just unique to a single culture. for people. And yeah, so those are, that's important too, yeah. And it sums up at the very end with day 6 being very good. We did talk about that question of why when the, early on when one of the days didn't get the good sign beside it. And I have to just pull that up for a sec because I separated the water below the expanse from the water which is above, and didn't call that good, but I'd heard it said that might not be good because it foreordained the flood that was coming, because there was no rains prior to the flood, and that so maybe this business with wasn't called good because God foresaw a flood coming, and that might not want to be called good. But I don't know.
Yeah, we had a discussion years ago about that, and I remember part of the idea of that day, potentially one theory, was that it involved separation, and that it's kind of embedded in that God's intention is to bring together, to bring unity, and that the fact that he had to separate was not declared as part of what he defines as good. One theory.
There's a very interesting verse which almost seems like as if God is saying exactly what serpent said that God would say, right? When he says, oh my goodness, they've eaten from the tree of knowledge. Now, if we don't do something, they will eat from the tree of life and they'll live forever. And so therefore we must banish them from the garden and so forth. And again, it's always amazing to me how the story of Genesis can be understood in so many different ways. It's almost like it's purposely stated also in a way that a person can say, yeah, that's exactly what God is like. God really is afraid that mankind is going to be like him, and God doesn't want the competition. And so, it's because that's what the serpent apparently convinced man and woman, Adam and Eve, is the essence of the relationship with God. It's a competitive one. It's not a partnership. It's not love. It's fear and competition. And that's exactly what evolution is all about. Evolution really is, it develops through those things which are the opposite of what God really wants. So one of the explanations that Itai Ashkenazi was mentioned earlier gives to this verse is that when you have a problem in the house between a husband and a wife, and one doesn't trust the other, it's not a good idea for them to stay together in the same house. They need to actually part, possibly so that they will be able to learn to trust each other and to come back into the relationship. But you can't have a relationship between two parties that don't trust each other. And what happens is that God created us in Eden, in a place that should become a home where we even sense God walking in the garden. He's like living together with us. We have everything that we could possibly need in terms of food and so forth. And that's the kind of relationship that God seeks with us. That relates to what Kim mentioned earlier about Shabbat. He wants us to be able to just spend really wonderful quality time together in peace and without having to worry about, surviving. But the moment the serpent came, or the serpent here really perhaps even represents evolution, came with this notion of that even God is in competition with man, and certainly man is in competition with man, then it takes all that away. And we have to go through a journey that will enable us to ultimately come back to that home with God and live with him in intimacy the way we are destined to be. And God has given us this reminder every week. There's this one day a week where we are reminded as to what we really are striving for. But ultimately, after the 6,000 years since creation, since God breathed life into man, those 6,000 years will lead to 1,000 years plus of peace just like Shabbat, this number 7 really plays a huge role through all this. So I think that a real major takeaway that I always take from this parsha is about how this the serpent introduction of this poisonous thought that we are in competition with God, that we are in competition with each other, how this poison has truly made life so difficult for all of us, and how perhaps by sensing the hardship of this paradigm, we will come around to recognize that actually God loves us and he's doing everything for us, so that we should ultimately be able to come together in peace with each other and with God, and be together with God in intimacy, as a long Shabbat would suggest. And that's one of the key takeaways that I like to take away from this parsha.
And you know something, Yair, also, it's very interesting when you were talking about the competition, because the one thing we do see is God is competing against other gods. I mean, there is a very strong jealousy issue here, and there's a very over us even. And but what's interesting about that is, notice that we are supposed to be like him in character and nature, and the other thing that you run after is making other gods, not becoming like God. And it talks about that, that they go and they serve strange gods and they make other gods. And here, Hashem is saying to us, what I'm wanting you to do is dwell with unity. I want your character and your mindset to be in unity with me, so I am able to cause my nature to be manifest in you. And it's so often, that's what even the whole concept of male and female is to come together in such a way that you form the unity of God. And there's no limit to possibility when that unity exists. And there's also the opposite when it doesn't exist.
Mm.
So I find that to be an interesting thing, that God is really jealous over us.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons.
He actually loves us. It's a hard
really
concept to
loves
get
us.
So
Yeah,
I-
I know.
and he really cares. He doesn't want us to destroy ourselves, to destroy. He's really trying to save us from ourselves all the time.
Well, that concept of God loving us, I think sometimes for some people, is very hard to understand. And I know we're at the end of our time here, so if anybody's chomping at the bit to run away, I want to be sensitive to your time schedules. But just to throw out that, and this was kind of bouncing around inside my head, is that I often think, as I've sort of learned more about what love looks like, as I've lived longer and longer, is that love has to do with being willing to make connection even when it's uncomfortable and painful. And I think that seems to be part of this concept of, like, when we say that God loves us, is he wants to be connected to us even when it's uncomfortable and painful. And it's not just a connection that serves unidirectionally. It's kind of, there's a sacrifice and a pain involved in being connected and being together and being united. And like, that's sort of a process of discovering who the God of Israel is. Who is this God that we're talking about? And it's being revealed, in Scripture. So, so with that, we kind of are at the end of our time. If anybody has like a burning last minute thought, I just want to open the floor for you, because we like to be generous with our time here. But if everyone's good, if everyone's had their word, I just want to make a few announcements. So you can still interrupt me if something bounces your head. So we have the Sukkot Summit finale next Sunday, and it starts at 10 in the morning Eastern Time. and ends at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And so during that window of 8 hours, we're going to have our Expo platform open so that people can come in. We're going to have Compass escape rooms, which are a new feature that we're going to be opening up on the Sunday. And those are essentially an online adventure through a bit of a story and with visuals and a new application that we actually developed to share with you for that. So you can sign up for that at the @One Summit website if you haven't signed up for that, and you will be receiving emails with notifications, links, everything you need to participate, and that will be next Sunday. And during that 8 hour...
By the way, you might be able to do with your family, because it's about Sukkot themes, but it's designed so that children and everybody can have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm. And we will also have an E-Noam discussion during that 8 hour window from 2 till 4. The last 45 minutes of that E-Noam meeting will be a sing together. And we're going to be also using a new platform that we've developed. You install it on your phone and you'll be able to sing into your phone, and then we're going to bring all the voices together and produce a collective song of everyone who participated. So that's what we're doing the last 15 minutes of our E-Noam session next week. And so there's a lot going on next Sunday. For those of you who are... Go ahead, Kim.
You look like you're gonna... Cool.
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 Agreed. Yair, if there's anything you want to add, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to clarify that the E-Noam session will be very much the same time like this week, and as it's been in the previous weeks. The early opening is really to allow people time to freely walk around. You'll be able to see the priestly blessing that took place at the Kotel. You'll be able to see virtual tours that were given during the Sukkot summit. There's a whole lot of really very interesting activities that occurred, and they were all recorded so that people can take a nice walk, visit, meet other people also who are doing this at the same time, and learn about Sukkot and experience Israel during the period of Sukkot. Unfortunately, COVID didn't allow a lot of people who normally want to come to Israel for that. So we're trying to bring Israel to you, to your living room, so that everybody would be able to experience little bits of Israel and its people and the Sukkot festival from the comfort of your home.
I particularly would love to encourage you to go to the Gihon Springs or the City of David tour. That was most fascinating as a 360 really tour. Is it a good idea to invite Gabriel people to download One Sing in preparation for next week?
Certainly. Yeah, we're still working on the Google installer for those who have Android phones, but anyone with an iPhone can already install the application.
And anybody who registers to that activity will get all the instructions they need by email.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's I mean, it's still in its beta testing stage, but it's a brilliant app. And I when I think of the applications it could potentially be used for, it's going to be quite amazing. So yeah, One Sing, ONESING. Go to your app store, download it, put your picture in, do all those things so you're all ready for next week, and you're not doing it and missing other things next week.
Yeah,
I saw that somebody put in Gabe's?
@One Song. Yeah, that's the name. If you
just check to see if you're on your toes.
Yeah, it's all good. @One Song. Just put that in your app store, and you will find it. The logo says One Song, so it's and I think
and that URL that you just put in the chat will also take you to all of the activities, including the One Song, so you'll be able to see it.
It didn't come up. How do I spell it, Gabe?
It's the @ @One Song.
Symbol.
Yeah.
Oh. So.
Do you see it there?
Yeah, it just came up. Okay.
I can.
It's going to bring Jews and Christians together from around the world. we'll sing together, or we're going to walk together. You know, sooner or
We'll
later, we're going to be in the
explore
garden.
Israel together. We're just going to have a lot of fun together.
You know, it's funny because this is how I got involved with all of this, was everybody was going to go sing in Uganda. That was the whole thing. And I was going with Daniel originally, but then COVID hit, so no one went to Uganda. I hadn't yet met Dean or anyone. This is before all of that and Yair. But it was all over the song. And I met Yair at a concert up in the
Kulam?
No, Dean, that's when I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
It was up at isn't that the Return Center?
Yeah, at the peculiarity.
Ah,
Up in Bedzera. That's right.
Yes, it's all over singing.
I'm just going to quickly share with you. This is what it should look like at one song.
So I
right there.
think, Gabriel, we should, I know it's just basically our steering committee and our panel. We have to create a tutorial on this. And I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah.
Link.
We'll follow up.
Yeah, get on it. Get on it. And by the way, Uganda might still be on this year. We did it twice already, Kim. We did it in 2019 and 2020 at the mouth of the Nile River. And David, you were there both times, weren't you? Certainly Edward was. And the reality is, I think, Edward, if you could speak into this, but the last time I talked to your cohort, it was going to be happening potentially early in 2022. Is that still happening?
Yes, January 2022.
Yeah. And so, Kim, we would really like you to be there, and you can bring all your friends. I think the Galbraith should plan on being there too. It's going to be life-changing.
2022. Wait, what month?
Yeah, January 2022. I think it's around the 22nd of January, 22.
Okay, I'll start thinking on that.
Okay.
I still haven't gotten on a plane since COVID, so I'm like.
Well, I think with that, we can wrap up for today. Thank you, everybody. It's been a great discussion. We just restarted the Torah, restart back at the beginning. So, Shavua Tov, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Looking forward to talking about the flood next week.
That's right. We're talking about Noah.
We actually called it something interesting. We saw
The flood.
we called it saving the world, right? So
Right.
Saving
flood
the
wasn't
world.
actually the only attempt.
The good and the bad. The
Parashat.
good and the bad about saving the world.
The world. Parashat Noah. Beautiful. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye. Shalom, shalom.
Hello.
Bye, Kim.